Hey, good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock. We're going to give folks just another 30 seconds or so to hop in before we get started. But thanks for spending your Thursday morning here with us. And just give us about 30 more seconds, get a few more people logging in, and we'll get kicked off soon.
While we wait for some more people to join us here, make sure to stay till the end. We're going to do maybe a live workshop or have plenty of time to answer questions. So appreciate you guys taking the time to chat with us here.
All right, no time like the present. Let's go ahead and kick this thing off, Tyler. Everyone, welcome to our webinar, 5 Tips for Prospecting. My name is Charles Parker. I'm a project director for the Retail Coach. For those of you who may not be familiar with our firm, we are a national retail recruitment and development firm. Over the last 20 years, we've worked in over 650 communities in 40 states, helping communities understand what are in their communities, but really being the driving force in the facilitating real estate deals. Everything from sit-down restaurants and quick serves to big box stores and local businesses in downtown. So prospecting is a daily part of our lives. So I'm glad to be able to share some of our experiences as well with Tyler. I know you do prospecting is the name of your game as well.
Absolutely. This is our favorite game. So I'm Tyler. I'm down here in Tampa, Florida. I'm one of the co-founders here at Resquared, and we work with landlords, landlord brokers, and economic developers to help them reach out to local businesses to retain and expand their operations. So excited to be here, and looking forward to adding some value on the call as much as we can.
I know overall, we want to have a good, strong takeaway, right, Tyler? And I think if we had just one takeaway for the folks that are on today, going to see the recording, is want to really inspire them to maybe tweak approach or make sure you feel confident in their approach. Hey, working, because prospecting it can be a long game, and your batting average and prospecting in any type of recruitment, but especially retail, isn't necessarily floating around 100% by any means.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're hoping to inspire you guys to get out there and prospect and hopefully be effective in some of the recommendations we make today. And just as a quick agenda, so we went through quick agendas. The 5 pieces we're going to go through is proactive versus reactive, the importance of tailoring the messaging, and a fun metaphor of how prospecting is a lot like dating. So we'll talk about that shortly, as well as why you need to leverage different mediums, and the importance of follow-up. Do you want to kick us off here, Charles, with the proactive versus the reactive? Actually, before we do that, we want to get a little creative here. And so for anybody that's on a summer fitness challenge, apologies in advance, but we love supporting local businesses. And so first person to put into the chat their favorite local pizza shop, their favorite in their address that they would want the pizza delivered to, offline, we will reach out to you, and we will treat you to a pizza party sponsored by one of your local pizza shops. So who's going to be the first person right now to put in your favorite local pizza shop and what you like on your pizza? Put that in the chat right now, and we'll reach out to you offline to figure out how to get that over to you. So anybody, nobody's in the chat yet. So put in your favorite pizza shop and your favorite pizza. First person to do it gets a free pizza. Who's going to do it? Don't leave us hanging here, guys. Anybody put in the chat here or in the Q&A section their favorite pizza. So we'll keep rolling. No one's done it yet. So this is my first time. Nobody's put in the chat yet. But looks like I think we got our first. Chat is disabled on your computer, Charity. So John Henry asked it via a question. So you're right, the chat was disabled, but it is as a question, and his is Moe's Pizza in Mount Oak Plaza in Bowie, Maryland. So John, thank you for figuring out how to break it through with the chat. And for the rest of you folks, sorry about the confusion with the chat, and excited to hook you up here, John. So we'll talk soon on that. Charles, you want to kick us off with the proactive versus reactive, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, the chat may be disabled The Q&A is up. So please, if you have questions, if we strike a chord throughout the next 20, 30 minutes or so, feel free to raise your hand, virtually ask a question. We have to just stop or answer them towards the end. Also, this is being recorded as well for follow-up. So just some housekeeping notes that I left out. But really, our first tip is being proactive versus reactive. And Kelly Kovar, our founder, the first thing he says about retail is it must be recruited. It is a tenet of how we founded our business and our model over 20 years. But those are being most successful. Those are attracting brands of every tier, from the national, regional, even down to local businesses. Those see that are thriving. More often than not, they have a proactive approach. They're filling their pipeline. They're reaching out. They're being business friendly. I know that's a catch-all term. But there's a lot you can do to be proactive and reach out. And that's obviously the first step, is determining how to prospect, how to reach those folks. And taking that first step is being on webinars like this and finding out, make sure you're doing things on the right line. But being proactive means a lot of different things. So let's kind of boil that down to the top ways to be. What does that mean?
I think from my point of view, in my experience, what's happening today is a result of what you did 30, 60 days ago, right? In order to build the pipeline. And a lot of you folks, I'm sure, are very busy right now, right? And in order to stay busy, you got to continue to work that pipeline. So I think one step you could take to be proactive today is what we preach to our team as a workday profile, where every day you make a goal of sending out maybe 10 or 15 emails, right? Or maybe 10 or 20 calls, depending on your bandwidth. So our challenge to you is, what can you do today a little bit at a time, so that way 60 days from now you remain and continue to be busy. So I think it's super important that people are proactive.
Yeah, and a lot of things to say, where do I start? There are things of looking at, hey, if you know that you need a sit-down restaurant. I know a lot of towns have done surveys for certain brands or concepts that are, annually done, or check out your local, if nothing else. I know there's usually always a pretty hot topic of, why don't X or Y or Z, or I've got to go all the way down to the next city over to get something. So there's a lot of information out there. There are analysis like leakage analysis and void analysis out there for you to go and check out and say, hey, it makes a lot of sense for us to have a certain sit down restaurant. So, taking that example, if you know that you need a sit down restaurant, start taking the steps. Are there available sites in town? Are you know where one could go? Do you know certain brands locally? Start making that list of, hey, here are local pizza shops. Going with our pizza example here, there are 10 local pizza shops that are in the area that aren't in our city. Maybe that's a good place to start doing research on them. So make sure that you are taking control of your prospecting and your recruitment aspect. That's what ultimately makes a major difference. And then, of course, there's all the events that you can take part on. We've hosted franchise workshops where you host local entrepreneurs who may be interested in starting businesses. There are free resources out there for EDCs and EDOs with franchise companies that their job is to help place interested entrepreneurs, and they're a free service that they'll come and host a workshop for you, knowing if you need something that's, a restaurant, a handyman service, a dry cleaning service, and everything in between. There are a lot of things you can do to kind of start being proactive and say, hey, we're going to take charge. We're going to start filling up those gaps in our community.
Love it. So what are you going to do today to start building that pipeline for tomorrow? And if you're going to put in the effort to reaching out to these folks, you want to convert, right? You want to get some sort of traction. And so the importance about tailoring. And one piece that I want to start out with is for any of the folks on here that use Gmail personally. I know a lot of people use Outlook for their work email address, but what you may or may not know is in Gmail, they actually break your email address into 3 different inboxes. So you have your primary inbox, you have your social inbox, and you have your promotions inbox. And so one thing that is so critical is that if you are not taking the time to tailor your emails and you're sending out the same emails to every single person with tons of links and tons of attachments, you're not even going to end up in their primary inbox. So not only is it important to get the conversion in the first place, but if they don't even ever see your email, then you're just wasting your efforts. And what I would challenge everybody on the call to think about is the mindset that you are in when you're checking emails. I know for myself, when I'm looking at my emails, I turn into a little bit of a savage, right? I'm quickly looking at, is this person trying to sell me something? Is this a blast? Are they trying to waste my time? So what are some examples that come to mind for you, Charles, of how you can tailor an email to actually convert?
Yeah, and we talk about this a lot. And you mentioned some of the warnings that go to attachments and links that those can easily be filtered out. Kind of as a secondary follow-up, we like to attach site information if we can, but for the aspect, tailoring it to their needs. If you're going after a barbecue restaurant, say, hey, we're looking for a barbecue concept for a district in our town, or we've got a great $3,500 or 3,500 square foot space with a patio that would be for a barbecue joint concept. If you can just even mentioning the similar things that they know you at least did some research, you're not just saying restaurant or you're not just saying business. Anything like that, it helps them know that you've at least done some research. There's some value in it. That you're not just buckshot and completely blasting out the whole web looking for any and all businesses. I know a lot of times, Tyler, you and I have talked about even using things like there's some mail merges out there, but it also does go a long way that they at least took the time to find it at some point to go through there. And it's not just a generic hey, or certain cities and areas that really make as specific as possible. They really are looking for this barbecue joint. They know about my location in Winston-Salem, that they're trying to get outside to Rockingham County and things like that. So if you can add in just those little bit of snippets that doesn't necessarily take a whole lot of work. It's just stuff you'd be doing on your research on the front end anyways. It definitely does make a difference, but it's a fine line, as you mentioned, with what to actually include in that email.
We have found in our analytics, we have a machine learning engineer that just looks at what type of outreach converts, and some things that have stuck out is shorter subject lines. So, having a long subject line, with exclamation points or question marks or whatever, is going to make it less likely that you're going to get the email open. We also found with our own analytics that if you have over 110 words in your initial outreach, and it's really easy to just Google word counter and copy and paste it, then you're likely not going to get a response, right? And what I challenge and recommend everybody to do is, before you send the email to that prospective client, send it to yourself and read it on your iPhone or your Google Pixel or whatever, right? Because it might look great on your laptop, but when you get that on your phone, it's going to look like word vomit, right? And it's going to look like a whole bunch of rambling. So the takeaways there are short and sweet subject lines, speaking to specific uses, like Charles said, not just saying restaurant, but saying barbecue or pizza, and then taking the time to even maybe look at their Yelp and, see what looks good, PS that beef brisket, looks amazing or whatever, right? Because at the end of the day, put yourself in the shoes of that prospect. Would you read your own email and would you respond to it?
Yeah, I think you made a good point there of how does it look on both. So much of us are emailing from our phones that it's important to double check your time, especially before you do kind of a blast and say, hey, how does this look when I pull it up on my phone? Does it look completely crazy? Does it look super long? Because one line across your computer screen can be 6 or 8 on your phone, and all of a sudden it looks like a whole lot more of an intense email than you even meant to. What about asking questions and things like that? What are some actual tips that you guys have seen? And I guess we got to flow in right here to 3, but you send out an email, how do you get a response? And I know in our work, sometimes we get everything from, yeah, I'm always looking, business is business, to I'm very interested, to just being ghosted. What email tip? There are ways you can do. There's been studies for it, and I know that just from learning on my end, there are certain questions that seem to, oh yeah, triggers a response a little bit better. So how is prospecting dating in that sense?
Perfect tee up, Charles. I think that to compare prospecting is like dating. The example I would use, now it's been a while since I've dated, now that I'm married with a 1-year-old, so a little rusty. But if I was to walk up to a random stranger, to a girl at a Starbucks, and say, hey, let's go on a date, that would be called being a creep, being a psychopath, right? Probably result in some sort of, viral video of you getting canceled, right? So at the end of the day, what I recommend is exactly what you just alluded to there, Charles, is that, hey, if I have a short subject line, I have a nice tailored body that's, try to keep it under 110 words. What is the call to action? Right. And I think in the example of the dating metaphor, if the call to action is always the date right away, you don't even know if they're single or if they're hungry, or if they're even interested, right? And so our recommendations as far as how to get a response is to take your sales process and think about the steps, not just immediately to getting a tour or a meeting, but is there a qualifying question you can ask them? So for example, something we've talked a lot about, Charles, and have experimented together with is, do you have any plans to relocate, right? Or do you have any plans to expand? And what's great about that is it eliminates the friction. Because if you tell me, hey, let's meet at Thursday at 2:00, first you're making me pull out my calendar, look and see if I'm available next week, right? See if you're making too much friction for me. But if you just make it as easy as responding as, yes, I'm interested in learning more, or yes, I'm interested in relocating or expanding, you're going to get in the door, which is going to allow you to facilitate the conversation. So the metaphor here is, if you find yourself asking for a date, if you will, in every one of your correspondence, from your phone calls to your emails to your Facebook messages, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you're jumping the step, right? So let's figure out, how can you qualify them along the way?
Yeah, and having those little pieces of, hey, it's just not where you come to my town, but where you go to any town. Are you going to have more than one or two locations? And part of that is on the front end as well. Like you said, the girl in the coffee shop or the person in the coffee shop, there are signs that they're single or not. Do they have a ring on? Are they with somebody? Same thing with best prospects. Do they already have multiple locations? Do they have 3 or 4 locations in an area? Have you seen them being very productive? Or do you know that the owner might be a franchise, has some sister concepts, some other aspects of it? So there are some pieces that you can do on the front end that kind of set you up to get the answer that you're looking for, right? Of, yes, you've got 3 locations. Odds are we would be open to a 4th at that point, especially if other locations are doing well. And it's a lot like building anything else, building those relationships with folks. One of the best ways that we've actually been successful in prospecting, especially local independent brands, is visiting their existing ones and actually talking to the owner. It drives my wife crazy that I've gotten into this habit. Every time I go into a local or independent restaurant, I ask who owns them. Like, hey, where store, are they from here? Is this their only location? Dessert, are they around? What's their name? And it really is surprising how those people want to talk to you. I mean, that's their pride and joy. They put their heart and soul into their local business, and to have somebody asking those questions, you can learn a lot about them. And it's not just for the independents either as well. I know we helped get the Eggs Up Grill in Camden, South Carolina, because we went to an adjacent Eggs Up Grill, and I met the franchisee, and I said, hey, how many units do you have? How many units are in your development plan? How many do you have to drop? We're working over in Camden. He goes, oh, my mother-in-law's from Camden. So you never know what the connections really is, a small world out there. So it really is getting to know people on a personal level, really developing that relationship before you ask for that date. How can you get to know them, know what their overall plans are, find those link connections? Same thing happened, and it's not just adjacent areas. We worked in Grant's Kitchen in the Jackson, Mississippi area, and he had a connection to outside of Nashville. We were working up in Gallatin, and Grant's Kitchen ended up opening, 400 miles away because we got to know the owner, started talking to him on one leg we were stopping in. So always be on the lookout. Prospecting is one of the things that never stops, right, Tyler? There's always a chance to prospect. And if you're out there, even if you're nowhere near home, you never know what the connection and who they might be able to introduce you to, or if there's a whole other section to their business or a sister company out there. Make sure you're always establishing that personal relationship.
I agree. And I think what I would tie that to is everybody, a lot of folks have seen the Glengarry, Glenn Ross, always be closing ABCs. I actually think they get that wrong. I don't think you always want to be closing, right? You always want to be connecting, right? And I think that what you're touching on there, Charles, is that, you genuinely are interested, right? You're passionate about it. You care, right? If you're asking someone who's the owner just because I want to sell them a deal, and if they don't sign on the dotted line, I'm going to pretend like they don't exist, then please don't even bother asking for the owner, right? So I think always be connecting whether it's in a line at a Starbucks, et cetera. And one thing I read in a book a while ago is, and I was trying to find it on my desk and I can't find it, so I use this thing, is a little marble, and you're supposed to put it in your pocket. Anytime you're meeting with somebody, you touch the marble in your pocket, and it reminds you that it's not about you, it's about the person you're meeting with. And so I think that's the right attitude to have. And Lincine asked a question in the chat: how do you provide valuable information in 110 words? First email with a follow-up email, I provide a map and demographic attachments, yes or no. So great question, Lancine, and we'd be happy to, maybe do a little mini workshop at the end of this, or even do a separate call where we could break it down for you. But just for a few tips, our recommendation is to not add an attachment on the initial email. To Charles's point, once someone responds that they're interested, then you can share the information, the demographic packets, the reports, et cetera. So our recommendation would be not to ask or not to attach it in the first place, but to ask them. Now, think about this for a second. If I was to send everybody on this call a cold email with an attachment, right? Not many people are going to open that, right? It's very sketchy to open attachments from people you don't know, right? They can jump into your bank account. Next thing you know, they're on your, Chase banking account, right? So I think that that's something to keep in mind too, is that you want to get in the door, ask them a question, or do you want more information? And if they do, then you send it, right? And I also think that there's the key with the 110 words is to just take the fluff out of the email, right? It's about them, right? They don't care as much about you. They want to know what can you do for them and what's the question you have. So like I said, we can do a little audit at the end or maybe even a separate call, but Lancine, we would recommend not including an attachment and making sure to make the call to action short and sweet. Anything you want to add to that, Charles?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head there, is make it about them. I know with our short and sweet emails, and we're doing cold calls, especially for kind of small businesses, saying, hey, do you have any plans for expansion? We're working in several communities outside of Columbia, and I've got some sites that are available that seem to match up. Obviously, say it more precise than that, but we've got some sites. Would you like to see them? Like more information? And say, hey, this is an offer, to really get them the next step to respond. That all right, then they respond. Then you set up time to really link up on that aspect. And we've talked a lot about independent and small businesses, which I think is probably the biggest concern for most folks on here, just because we've covered it ad nauseum in the past about kind of the national and regional guys. But in the same sense, those tenant reps that are all the major brands for CBRE or shopping center group, developing that relationship with those guys is just as important, because you never know when they pick up a new tenant that they rep. And they know, if you develop that relationship with them and they know that you're a source of information for both properties that are on market and maybe even be off market, they know that you're a business friendly area, that you're willing to help and do whatever they can. Brokers are generally looking for the path of least resistance. And if you get a good reputation of someone that's always responsive, that always has the answer, getting connected with somebody, they know that those are 3 steps to help them make that deal go faster. That's 3 steps to make them get that commission a little bit faster. They're going to know that, all right, let me push projects that way. I've talked with a lot of brokers, and there are certain areas that they like just because they know the city will work with them and be very business friendly, and it won't drag their feet. And then there are other areas that they said they did a deal with, they'll never go back just because it was tough to work with them and the process was so long and they got nickel and dime at every corner. So if you can have that personal relationship with them, and that you talk to them, they know first name basis, inevitably something's going to go wrong throughout the process coming through the permitting. But if you can pick up the phone and talk to them and work them through it, it's going to mitigate any issues. They're going to want to come back and stay working with you, and then they know that you'll fix it. So really back to that relationship aspect on both ends of the spectrum.
Absolutely. And I think one suggestion I would have for the group as well is figuring out, for those that you already have worked with, right, what sparked their interest, right? Like ask somebody that, maybe send somebody you have a relationship with the email you're working on and be like, would you respond to this, right? What do you think about this, right? Or, when someone doesn't respond to you, say, hey, is there anything that, turned you off from my email, right? The feedback loop, learn what's sparking their interest. Why did someone respond to you? Why did they not? And if you just assume what that is, you might be sending something that's not actually resonating, and I think, speaking of the fact that, hey, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. And from my perspective, all technology does is just facilitate relationships, right? And facilitate, humans working with one another. Could you speak to the importance of different mediums, Charles, and, getting those relationships, facilitated through different mediums?
Yeah, and this is kind of the one that, especially for local independent businesses, how do you get a hold of them? And contact information, something we'll probably talk about too. How do you find it? But so many businesses now, like you said, technology is such a big tool. They rely on Facebook, on Instagram, because that's what's a lot of driving their sales. They're executing orders through those aspects of it. Don't be afraid to message a business through Facebook. That's one of the ways that we've actually got a lot of success messaging business directly through Facebook, saying, hey, we represent a few cities in your area. Are you looking to expand? So that is a great source to get connected with them. It's not just emails. It's not just phone calls. Those are great options to build those relationships. The key is getting in touch with them now. And just like you connect with your friends across 5 or 6 different mediums the same way. But it also helps you prospect and find new brands you may not have known. Things like Advisor, Yelp, maybe not be the biggest names in some of the districts that you're looking at to prospect, but might have a really great that people love. It's a destination in certain areas across the board. There's just so many tools out there for you to go and prospect off of.
One of my favorite quotes in life is a Mark Twain quote: when you find yourself on the side of majority, it's time to pause and reflect. And I think it's safe to say email is the majority, right? Everybody in the world is sending emails right now, but Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and handwritten letters and videos, right? Those are not the majority. And I think that back to the mindset of when I'm checking emails, right? I'm in guard mode. I'm deleting, I'm forwarding, when I'm on Facebook, I'm watching Netflix with the kids, right? Or whatever, right? You're on the couch at your house, right? There's a lot, your guard is down, right? So not only are you getting way less messages as the business owner, right? So you get in a less noisy medium, they're actually incentivized to respond to you on Facebook. So anybody that's been on a Facebook page before will see, hey, this person typically responds in X amount of time, right? And so this is an example of a prospect that I reached out to on Facebook, and you can see that he was actively looking, right? So notice that the call to action here wasn't, hey, can we meet next Thursday at 3:00? Or it wasn't, see this flyer that you can look at, right? It was simply, do you have any plans? And then he did. And so we sent him all the information, which ultimately, went down the deal flow process. I also briefly mentioned it, but handwritten letters are my personal favorite, where you can go on Amazon right now for $20, buy 100 letters, go on stamps.com, get some stamps. And if you just get in the habit of writing a handful of letters a day, it'll take you 5 minutes, and it'll make the world a difference. I don't know about y'all on the call, but I can count on one hand how many handwritten letters I've gotten in my life. And so I don't know if it's the best, always for that first outreach. I think it really works well on the follow-up, once you've engaged with someone, because ultimately timing is everything in sales, but we can't control that, right? So we just need to be out in front of them in different mediums as much as we can. So to summarize my points is Facebook, they're incentivized to respond to you. The same principles apply of short and sweet, no attachments, as well as different mediums like handwritten letters, video messages. One thing I usually will do is someone doesn't answer my call, I'll record a video on my iPhone and text it to them. Just like, hey, was, reaching out to say hi, hope you're having a great day. Any way you can stand out in the crowd, as long as it's genuine, is worth experimenting with.
Yeah, and like I say, across mediums is important, but ultimately, the more creative you kind of get on the front end, it generally leads to a call or a meeting. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the same concept. Kind of a quick story here. We were doing back in barbecue joints in North Carolina, and he had 5 or 6 concepts, and emailed, went to a few emails, got on the phone and talks. He's like, really, I've got this concept, they're all doing really well, but I've got this vision for a different barbecue concept, a full Texas style, that when we're done smoking the meats and we're sold out for that day. Mm-hmm. So we reached out talking about kind of what we thought he had in concept wise, but because we built that relationship, reached out, got him on the phone, and realized that he had a little bit different. We're like, all right, well, that completely changes everything. We've got a great space for that. We've got a great patio where we know that the smoke from the smoker won't be in effect, that we've got a developer who's looking exactly for this. So don't be afraid to reach out and just ask generally. Sometimes more general helps you at times to say, hey, it's not just that. You have other visions. What do you like to do? Do you like to cook that way? So it's interesting how the conversation can twist and turn. And we're working on closing that deal in North Carolina on a barbecue joint, which is going to be completely new brand because the owner wanted to do something a little bit closer to his heart and really wanted to get down to his roots of kind of backyard smoking. So it's just interesting to see how the turns take. But you said it multiple times now, being genuine, wanting them to be successful, wanting them in your area to be a tie into the community. That gets out and that creates a reputation. And the most successful recruitment tool that you can have is having a successful business district, and supporting them in multiple ways is going to help you more than anything else. And that when you do reach out via Facebook or even LinkedIn, that you can have that, oh, I know that area, I've been there, it's a great spot. My restaurant would love to be there too. And as we're talking about mediums here, Tyler, what are the best ones? You know, we hear a lot of Facebook or LinkedIn. What are the uses for each one? Where should people allocate their time, in your opinion, that where have y'all had some of the best success at Resquared?
Absolutely. Yeah. From our lens, what we're seeing is that there's some pretty interesting stats on that. So less than 20% of small business owners are on LinkedIn, whereas over 80% of small business owners are on Facebook and or Instagram. And so what we have found is that particularly with the local businesses, you're going to find a lot of success on Facebook and Instagram. Now, we recommend some of the more aesthetic, verticals, like, for example, some fitness, spas, hair salons, some restaurants. You're going to find on Instagram, a lot. And I think more on the medical side, like the dentists and the chiropractors, you'll be better off on Facebook. Now, with that said, Facebook has actually merged all Messenger. So it's just messenger.com. So whether you go in their Facebook or in their Instagram, ultimately you're going to get to the same place. And so I think that just really comes back to that workday profile of just consistently sending out messaging, and coming at it with the mindset of, do they have something that I can help them with? Right. And I think that's where that genuine, broken record comes into play, right? Is I talk to our sales team all the time. If your mindset is, hey, I need to book a meeting with this person, that's going to come off in the what you communicate. Your mindset needs to be, are they looking for small businesses? And if they are, we know we have the best solution for them. But if they're not, then let them go. It's kind of like if someone's selling steaks door to door and you knock on a door and they say they're a vegan. Are you going to try to convince them to eat steak, or are you going to move on to the next one, because you believe in your steaks? So I think it's important to cross-pollinate between the Facebook, the Instagram, the LinkedIn, but particularly for small businesses, Facebook and Instagram are the sweet spot. And we did get one more question that I think you could answer perfectly, Charles. Lancine asked, franchise workshops, how and with whom do I set one up?
Yeah, and we've actually done some with a couple of different franchise consultants. Franchoice is one that we do with, and I've actually introduced to our client communities. But there are a handful of those firms out there that their number one is to connect interested individuals with concepts. And for what they're a free resource. So the franchises themselves actually pay for these consultants' fees, and they are happy to set up a meeting, whether it's virtual or in person, that if you get, 10, 15 people in a room from your local area, just interested folks, they'll come and kind of give the full franchise information. What is a franchise? How do you get started? The first steps, and they actually will walk those individuals through the entire process. So I can follow up with a few links with some contact information from some of the folks that we've worked with in the past that will do a free workshop. Let's say it might be virtual, might be in person, depending on where you are. But there are a lot of opportunities out there that's their whole goal, and that service is paid for by the franchises themselves, so it is free. So in our follow up from the email, the recording and all, I'll make sure that we include some information on that with a few recommendations that we've worked in the past to help set up those franchise shops.
Great question. And Susie asks, can you give me a typical message I'd want to use reaching out to a retailer I'm interested in? Before we get into that, Fran Choice, that was the one that you said, Charles, you were cutting up a little bit.
Yeah, Fran Choice is one that we've got an old webinar that we've actually done with with them as well. I can go and refer to, but I will shoot out a link with full information on that and to maybe set one of those up. But there are several firms out there that are more than happy to come and kind of be your guest speaker, maybe be at a monthly chamber meeting or whatever the popular way to get folks in one room is there locally. A lot of options. So I can follow up with specifics on who to reach out and first steps for that.
Awesome. And Susie, with your question related to a typical message, what we can do is speak to that here a little bit. I think what we want to avoid is having a template that we use the same exact template every single time, right? And so I think what we can touch on a couple best practices, and then we'd be happy to set up kind of a one-on-one with you to kind of learn more about what you're trying to accomplish, so we can give you the right direction. I think the way to think of it is, I don't know if, you guys remember the Mad Libs where you would fill in, like an adverb or, adjective or whatever, and it would, tell the funny story. I think in general, there's kind of, three blocks, right? It's why you're reaching out, right? So, hello, I'm reaching out because I'm working with this, municipality or this area, or we're looking for this. And we think, and that's why you're reaching out with the use, right? Targeted use. And then what's in it for them, right? Maybe a little nugget about, the community or, the certain property that you have in mind. And then the third piece is having a very clear call to action. And one tip I'll give everybody is a free tool. It's called HemingwayApp.com. Hemingway, like Ernest Hemingway app.com. If you guys Google it real quick, copy and paste your email in that bad boy, and that'll help you simplify your message. So that's a little high level for you there, Susie, but we can give you some more details offline here. So last piece is the importance of follow-up. So I think that slipped through. So I'll just speak to that real quick, and Charles, you can take us home. I think that from my personal experience, in all the products that I've purchased, right, I had a problem, I had the budget, right, and the sales rep still needed to call me every day and send me a LinkedIn message to get a deal signed, right? Because one thing I realized as a salesperson is that when you realize you're just interrupting people all day long, you take it a little less personally if you catch them at a bad time, right? And it's like my mom would always tell me, that kid in school that's bullying everybody, right? He's probably got something else going on in his life that's having him act that way. And so give your prospects the benefit of the doubt when you're following up with them if they're rude, because you're the one interrupting them, right? And so they might have something else going on in their life. And so what I preach to the team is, when you feel like you're stalking someone, you're probably doing it right. As long as you do it with respect and with integrity, right, and you genuinely care about their success, you're probably not following up enough. And I think personal experience, people that have signed contracts, I mean, we're talking about 30, 40 touch points to get a deal done when they have a pain in the first place. So anything you'd add to that, Charles, or any, examples of the persistence?
Yeah, I say it's a fine line between pesky and persistent, but you have to walk that line. And a lot of those times when you're following up, it's because they've given you a reason to follow up. They said, yeah, we are expanding. We're looking at certain areas, and they go cold for 3 or 4 weeks. But you have to keep in mind, as you said, these are small business owners in a lot of cases that we're talking about today. They're running a restaurant, they're running a salon throughout the day. So it's hard for them to follow up. And you don't know what happened if they just got a new lease or anything else could happen to maybe slow them down. But if you can continue to provide more information, provide more pieces to it, there is too much follow up. But like what we like to do is every time you do follow up, try to add more value. And we had a question pop up talking about, hey, how often do you actually follow up, especially if it's a no or a not right now? And that's even a little bit more of a specialty follow up of, hey, no, we're not actually looking right now. When's too soon to follow up on that if they said no or if they've gone quiet? And we want to make sure we're always adding a little bit more. Hey, in the past, you mentioned that you are expanding, maybe not in our area. I wanted to let you know that we just signed this anchor tenant, or we have a new Publix development coming right down the street. It's going to alter this area. Just want to keep you abreast of what's going on in the area, so you know kind of how this area is changing. So if there are things that happen, or someone else signs, or a new space opens, or you get a new announced something with DOT or a traffic lights coming, anything like that changes the local area or changes the story just a little bit, that can be beneficial to know. That's a great excuse to follow up. And it's not just, hey, you said yes, where are you at? It's, hey, I want to let you know this is also happening, just to keep you motivated. And it kind of becomes less creeper, like you said, and more of, hey, I want to keep offering you things. And I think that kind of goes back to building that relationship well. So that may keep you, because we talk about having that first email being so short, you're not going to be able to include everything you want. So maybe there are some things to keep in your back pocket, knowing that, hey, odds are, looking at the numbers, I'm going to have to follow up at some point. We're not doing 100% on everything. So maybe plan out your email, say, hey, this first email, I'm going to say, hey, are you available, or are you looking for expansion? The second one, like, hey, we got a great space. The third one is, hey, this just happened down the street. So make sure you're thinking long-term too, and not really just throw everything at once, because like I say, if they delete that email, you're kind of out of options to follow up, and you can't always add that marginal value at every time. So that's something else I would think about. What's your long-term approach to knowing that it's going to take a few tries at them to get them on the hook?
The lifetime value. I think those are all spot on. And I think, one thing that's important too is, when you have their attention, right, where you've engaged with them, they said they're interested, they're like, okay, well, follow up with me in a month or whatever, follow up me with them, blah, blah, blah. Get it on the calendar. For all of you folks that have been to ICSC events or other, Retail Live and all the wonderful events in our industry, right? If you don't get that follow-up event on the calendar, right, good luck getting a hold of that person, right? And so I think it also, what I will kind of articulate that as is, if Charles and I are going through a sales process together, I'd say, hey, Charles, maybe he says follow up with me in 3 weeks. I'd be like, hey, I don't want to be pestering you in 3 weeks. How does Tuesday at 3:00 for me to pester or pencil in a 15-minute check-in there, and then it's on his calendar, then he's agreed, that's when we will talk. And then that way, if he doesn't show up to that meeting, then I say, hey, Charles, you told me to follow. I'm just doing what you said. Obviously, you don't need to put it in those exact words, but he gave you the permission to follow up. And I think that that is key, as well as getting the follow-up on the calendar. And one of my other favorite follow-up suggestions is, it comes back to, at the end of the day, you're just interrupting people, and all of us have lives, right? Like, where we have family members and health and all kinds of stuff we're dealing with. And so I've had tons of experiences where customers said they were going to buy and then they disappear. And I come to find out that they had some sort of medical emergency or a car accident or something crazy. So I think if you're having trouble getting a hold of someone, just ask them if they're okay. You have to actually care about the answer to that, right? If you're just doing that because you think it's going to get a response, then please don't, because that'll backfire. But if you do genuinely care about the person you're hoping to serve, just ask them if they're okay. I haven't heard from you for a few months. I just want to make sure you're okay, right? And now don't immediately say, so can you sign that proposal for me, right? But if you show that you care, you're going to shine. So I think I think it'll make more sense for us to help with editing an email, offline here to Susie's notes, if we can help and give some specific tips. So if anybody, wants help with their emails, I'm going to put some contact information up there. But before we wrap up, are there any more questions that we want to address here, Charles or team here? Anybody got any more questions they want to throw in the chat before we land the plane here?
I think one thing that I've seen a couple questions kind of ask is contact info. We've talked about Facebook and reach out, but if we see a brand or we see a certain aspect, where are some of the best places to find the right person? And ultimately, as recruiters, as what you guys do at Resquared, getting to the right person is the name of the game too, right? Identifying the key decision owner. It's a little bit easier on owner in small independent business, but we talk about regional and franchises and national brands. It gets down to the right person. So how are ways that you can suggest to find the contact information or the right email? How do you kind of pre-prospect period of hey, who do you even need to send that email to?
Sure. No, I think it's a great question. So One shameless plug is if it is a local and regional business, then we've done all that work, on the Resquared team of gathering all that information for you. So for local and regional businesses, we have all that information ready to go. As far as just getting contact information in general, particularly larger businesses, I have found that there's lots of tools that integrate with LinkedIn, so you can see what emails they've used on LinkedIn. There's different mail tools like AnyMail and other tools, which will look at how a typical website or domain structures their emails. Like, in other words, is it C Parker, or is it Charles at, is it Parker C at, or whatever, right? So there's different ways to look into it that way as well. A lot of the trade shows that are out there, you can get attendee lists, right, and see who's actually going to be going there or not. And then what I like to do is once you get an email address and you're doing kind of a one-off, just Google their email address. And a lot of times you'll find their phone number on a flyer or on some article they wrote or something like that. So in short, local and regional businesses, shameless plug, we have the best data there. In general, I think figuring out what their domain setup is, Googling their email address, using companies like Retail Live and ICSE, particularly ICSE for some of the larger, the Whole Foods of the world, to see their org chart. Those would be my suggestions.
Yeah, so I've got my Retail Live book on my desk at all times. It's got my hand in it, who I need to call about certain brands. I will say, though, one thing about some of the national and regional guys is a lot of times they are repped by regional brokers, and that you couldn't find it on Public's website, or you couldn't find it on, Arby's website, even if they had it. But if you can find a contact that does real estate for them, more often than not, they will pass the buck as quickly as they can to their colleagues. If you just, hey, James, this is in your area, who covers South Atlanta, or who covers, East Dallas, Fort Worth, or who did you just talk to? More often than not, they would love to fill that email out and say, oh, that's my colleague Jill. She would love to talk to you, and throw somebody under the bus. So don't be afraid, even if you know it's not the right person, asking those questions. We success doing that, and then also doing the guess at their email at times, where you don't know maybe what it looks like. If you find another one and can guess, you can usually, between a few tries, figure out a way to get that going on that aspect. So just a few kind of tips there at the end. And then we just had another question come in talking about commercial inventory getting tight. Is it a bad practice to suggest a location that isn't necessarily on the market? And Jack, this is one of the things that I believe is one of the biggest values that the EDOs, local developers, people that have the local knowledge, this is where you have the most to give to somebody like that. If you know that property is acquired, or that's, James's cousin uncle's, and he's getting ready to sell it, even though it's not on the market, or it doesn't have a broker for it, that information, there's no way to know that you're a local and you're in the, and if you can provide information like that, especially to regional brokers that are doing a lot of tenant rep, they will call you back and they will understand, all right, Jack's got information that I can't get anywhere else. They're likely to answer and call you back. So absolutely. We tell all of our clients that, hey, when you're building that inventory of available sites, there's two categories. There's the ones you can go find on CoStar or LoopNet. Then there's the ones that, would be available. You kind of know what the asking price would be, and that they're kind of saving it for the perfect deal. So absolutely keep those in mind. I would say at least do some, they actually are available and that they can be, and that they're not asking for a gold mine for it. But if it is something that they would sell, they're just not marketing right now, absolutely. And keep yourself involved, because that's how it's going to get out that, hey, Jack's the guy. He helps me, and they're going to answer your phone call if you can get them a deal like that without having to go through all that. So absolutely, those off-market sites that are still available, I'll value there.
Great question, Jack. And a huge thank you to the entire audience who took the time on our busy schedule to spend time with us. And a big thank you to Riley behind the scenes, making all this magic happen, and Charles for giving me the opportunity to join. So proud to to be partners with you guys. And a thank you to Lancine, who said this has been an excellent and totally worthwhile webinar. And I've done lots of webinars before, and I've never seen every one of the participants stay the entire call. So thank you all for giving us the time. You can see our contact information on the screen here. If we can serve in any way, work on edits, emails, Charles and I care. We want to serve you guys. So thank you so much for the opportunity to spend some time together this morning. And Charles, I enjoyed hanging out with you, man. Look forward to next time.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Tyler. And the last thing I'll leave is don't be discouraged. Prospecting is a very, very low conversion rate. I know Tyler and I have heard no a whole lot more than we've heard yes. But those yeses that get sprinkled in are absolutely worthwhile, and it absolutely can change your. So don't be discouraged when there are those, or you get ghosted, or you don't get a response. You still are making an impact in your community. Don't forget that. That's why this. That's the fulfilling part of it. So keep trucking along. Hopefully, we got some tips and tricks in here to help tweak what you're doing, and you feel confident reaching out, even though you may not always get a response, knowing you are making an impact. So spend your morning with us. You've got our contact information. If you can do anything else at all to help, don't hesitate to reach out. That's what we're here for.
Thank you, guys.